3, 2, 1, 0.
It's Monday night, it's 7 o'clock, which means it's time for Monday Night Nerd. Welcome one and all to episode, I think this is 79. I think we're closing in on episode, we're almost at episode 300 at this point. I'm kidding, we're at episode 79. We're closing in on 100 episodes. I can't believe this, but I'm so glad you can join us tonight. Tonight, we're going to be talking all about the early Batman movies. We're going to talk about the 89 Batman. We're going to talk about Returns. We're going to talk about Forever. We're going to talk about Batman and Robin. Thank you all for spending your Monday night with me tonight. If you are one who usually tunes into the pre-show on Instagram, unfortunately, I was unable to join in. We were having some technical difficulties here, and I had to jump in and make sure everything was working properly for you folks tonight. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Myers Corp Cosplay. I'm a cosplayer / nerd from the Southern Ontario area. On here, this is my podcast. We talk about music, movies, comic books, cosplay, wrestling, and everything else. Tonight, we're talking about Batman, because who doesn't love The Dark Knight? But this isn't the Dark Knight of today. This is the Dark Knight of the 90s, and it's a big difference. And if you're here, you must be a nerd, and that means you will probably like my other episodes on this, including future episodes, like next week, when we're going to be talking about Christmas gifts that you could get your nerd this holiday season. So you're going to want to be here for that. The only way to do that is to subscribe. So subscribe, like this video, share it, all those things that every other person on this entire platform tells you to do. But it means a lot to me, because then I know that you like what I'm doing. So let's start things off as we usually do with a little bit of news. We're going to talk about a couple things that are going on in the world right now, especially things that have happened to me, because I've had a busy week. I started this week, well, last week, with going to a Raptors game. I went to my first Toronto Raptors game in about 20 years. It has been a long time since I've seen the Raptors, and I got nothing against the Raptors. I'm just not a giant fan of theirs. I'm actually a big Minnesota Timberwolves fan. I grew up with Kevin Garnett and all of the NBA of the 90's. So my wife was really interested in going, and we were able to find some pretty good tickets at some pretty good prices. So we decided, let's make a date night out of it. So we got together, and we got ready, and we realized, we are going the same night as night 4 of the Taylor Swift concert. So we were a little worried going into Toronto that night. We were worried that we were going to run into a whole bunch of people going and a whole bunch of people leaving. But the travel was actually not that bad. We took we drove in about almost 3/4 of the way, and then we took the train a couple stops just to make sure we didn't have to deal with parking or anything like that. And when we got there, it was actually not too bad. The Swifties were just going into the show. I actually went over and hung out for a few minutes. So I wanted to see what all the hype was about. It's the closest I was ever going to get to that show. But it was really cool. It was cool seeing everybody out there having fun, trading bracelets. And then we went over to the Scotiabank Arena, and we saw the Raptors play the Timberwolves, which I was really happy to finally see the Timberwolves live. And the Timberwolves are doing great this year, and the Raptors are not doing great. And the Raptors beat the Timberwolves, which I was kind of surprised about. But overall, it was a fun experience. I might actually do another NBA game in the next coming months if we can find some cheap tickets somewhere. Like I said, it was a great night. The atmosphere is really cool there. Like I said, I haven't been there in decades. I think the last time I was there, we actually went on a field trip in my high school when I think we were playing the Bulls. I got the ticket behind me. And yeah, we were playing. It was back in the day. We were way up high. And it was fun, but it just wasn't anything that I was like losing my mind over. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. If you're an NBA fan and you can find some cheap Raptors tickets, you should go, because they put on a hell of a show. I've been following a little bit online, but they're doing sort of a tournament type thing, or they just finished a tournament, and everybody's got a bunch of new courts. And the new court that the Raptors have with their new logo, it's the Raptor doing the Vince Carter dunk, looks really cool. The purple looks dope. So it was a really, really fun time. The atmosphere was really great. Prices were stupid as always, but that's to be expected when it comes to sports and stuff these coming seasons. But yeah, go check out the Raptors. I had a blast. I might go back. When it comes to movies and entertainment, I really haven't watched a lot. I've been gaming a lot, and we're going to talk about that in the next story. But I did watch something that I had watched a long time ago, and I wanted to rewatch it. I wanted to watch a documentary that I'd seen a long time ago that I was one of the few documentaries I'm very interested in. And you may or may not know about it, so I'm going to give you a little bit of a breakdown of what it is. The documentary is called West of Memphis. And if you don't know what West of Memphis is, it is about a murder case called the West Memphis Three. And what the case is about is three little boys went out one night and they went down to a creek and they were murdered. And no one really understood what happened. However, there were three boys that were very much into metal music, very into wearing goth clothing, and that type of kid. And the town instantly believed it was those three boys. And the entire documentary is an understanding of what it was like for the boys to go through this, and also what the legal system was like back in the early 90s when this happened, and the whole persona of the cult-like murders that daytime talk shows were talking about, and how that had sort of swept up the United States and have this mentality that all these people are evil. And these boys were just, there were so many problems with the trial, with the way they were treated, with the investigation. And it took a lot of outside sources, including a private investigator and the influence of Henry Rollins from the Rollins Band and Black Flag, Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam, Johnny Depp, Peter Jackson from Lord of the Rings. All of these guys got together and they really combined their money and their efforts to find out the truth about this. And what they discovered was, again, the police made many failures. The investigative attorneys had some problems. There was several witnesses or several pieces of evidence that were brought into the case that were completely mismanaged and misunderstood. And it took them several, probably, I think it was about 18 years to get these boys out of jail. And when they were sentenced to death. They were on death row. They were going to be executed. And it took all this effort to get these kids out of jail. And it is a documentary that, again, I saw many years ago. And as someone who grew up as a metalhead, as someone who wore goth clothing, not goth clothing, but metal and black clothing, there was definitely some people in my world that didn't understand it. And I could see the somewhat side-eyed look I get from some people. And I just think, man, if I was in a different neck of the woods, this could be me. This could be a lot of people in my life. So if you've never seen West of Memphis, please watch it. It's horrible if you are a parent, but it is very good to understand how a community really got behind what they thought was the truth, but were so misguided. And I also understand from the police side of it that they put all of their eggs in the basket of these three boys doing it, that it was so hard for them when they probably realized that they made a mistake to say, oops, we made a mistake, and pull back on it, because it would have destroyed the reputation of the police force. Like, I understand how that would have been an extreme problem for them. So, like I said, West of Memphis, I believe it's on Netflix, or there's a version of it that's very similar to West of Memphis on Netflix. Go check it out. It's an incredible documentary. Other than that, like I said, the one thing I've been doing right now is I have been gaming. I've been gaming like crazy, and you know why? That's because PlayStation released their Black Friday sale early. And what did I buy? I didn't buy anything individual. I bought my subscription. I have the second tier of PlayStation Plus, which gets me the monthly free games, and it also gives me a catalog of older games to play through. However, because of the Black Friday sale, for an extra $15 for the rest of the year, I was able to get an even bigger catalog of retro games. And that's what I did. I spent the $15, and I now have a huge library of games to play. And you're probably wondering, what games do you have to play? Well, I get to now play all of the Ratchet and Clanks that I never got to play when I was younger, all of the Jack and Daxters, all of the Sly Coopers. These are all games I've never touched before. And what else I download? Some retro titles like Alone in the Dark for PlayStation 1. What else? There's all the Batman games, all the God of Wars, which I might play through again. I have just been going nuts on that. However, I've also been playing something else before that because I didn't get the subscription until yesterday. Before that, though, I was playing WWE 2K24. Now, if you know me, I'm not someone to sit and binge. I don't binge movies. I don't binge TV. I only binge video games. And even that, it takes a lot to do it. And what did it for me on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday was I'm getting over a cold. I have been sick for the past 3-4 days. I started to feel it just before we went to the Raptors game, and I have been so stuffed up and headachy and just tired for the past 4 days. It's not COVID because I know I'm feeling better now. And last time I had COVID, I was out, and I haven't been out. I've just been not wanting to do much. So I've been playing WWE 2K24 for the past 3 days pretty much, and it's pretty fun. I've not sat down and played a WWE game for a while. Probably not since the PS3 days have I actually sat down, played the story, created a character, and all that stuff. It's pretty fun. It's a whole new control system, which I wasn't used to. It took me some time. The story is kind of dumb, to be completely honest. The created character story has so many dumb twists and turns that you can see coming a mile away. Which, whatever, I'll just go with it. The one thing that I've always loved for the past few years, if they've done something like a showcase where they've taken a superstar and you've done key moments of their career. And this year was the Showcase of the Immortals, which is the highlights of WrestleMania. There have been 40 WrestleManias now, so they've done, I think there's 30 matches throughout the career. There's ones from like the early ones. I think the first one was Macho Man versus Steamboat, Hogan and Andre, etc. And by the end, I was so excited to finish it. But the last thing they did was they asked you, who do you think was the biggest superstar of all the WrestleManias? And I picked one of the best ever, and that's John Cena, because he has done incredible things over the past couple decades. And then they say, okay, you now have to play a 30-man Royal Rumble from beginning to end and beat everybody. And you have not played a Royal Rumble throughout your storyline. Beating a Royal Rumble from beginning to end is a pain in the ass and has always been a pain in the ass every game. And I actually went online and went like, is there any cheap way to get through this? I really don't want to struggle with this. And I found so many people who are like, I got to that point and I just turned the game off and I haven't touched it since because it's such a frustrating thing to put at the end of that game. And I got to agree. I played it once and I got my butt kicked and I just went, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not getting frustrated. And it's funny that this brings up a topic that my wife and I have a lot of discussions about, and that is, what difficulty do you play your video games on? She likes playing on a challenging difficulty because she likes having that challenge of a video game. I personally play on easy. Most games are on easy, and that's because I like the story. I like enjoying the game. I feel like if I get into a game and I play 30 minutes worth of the game and then I die and I have to go back to the beginning, it is the most frustrating thing. And I feel like I've wasted 30 minutes of my night. So even playing the Royal Rumble on easy was frustrating. So I had to just turn it off. It was just that frustrating. But yeah, so I'm going to be playing a whole bunch of games over the next few weeks because I now have a ton of backlog to run through, and I'm super excited to do that. That is all the news for the night. If you give me 1 second, I'm just going to put myself on mute because I've got to blow my nose. My nose is running like a faucet. Just 1 second. There we go. That was probably so attractive for everybody. All right, let's jump into, well, guys, like I said earlier, if you can hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, all those things, it'd be greatly appreciated. Sponsor, as always, for the show, you know her. She's my beautiful, amazing, loving wife. It would not be a great show without her. I would not be doing this show if it wasn't for her. She's always the sponsor of this show because she has made me such a great person. And again, I know I say it every single week, but it is the truth. And if you've met her, you know it to be true. So, hun, I love you. You'll always be my sponsor. Okay, folks, let's jump into it. Let's jump into the main event. Now, we've got 90s Batman movies. Let's talk about the world of comic book movies at this point. We've talked about comic book movies last week, and we went through a whole bunch of them that were good, they were bad, they were in the middle. Nothing besides the Mortal Kombat movie really stood out. Or not Mortal Kombat. Not much besides, a Spawn, or there's very few of that era that were that good, to be honest. But Batman has always been the beacon of the comic book movies and the beacon of the DC universe. And there's a reason for that. And that was because before that, we had Superman, and they were great, but they kind of tailed off. And then Batman, in the comic world, in the nerd world, exploded. And how it exploded was with the 1989 movie. Now, Batman was popular in the comic books. 100% he was popular in the comics. But this took it to the next level. I was 1 when this movie came out. But even at 1, I somehow think I remember seeing this visual everywhere. I think Kevin Smith talks about it in his podcast where he says there was people like carving this in the side of their head. It was such a fever pitch at the time. I like this movie. And however, and this is probably going to hurt some people, this is probably the worst out of the 4 in my opinion. Now, before you crucify me, that's like saying 98, 98, 97, 95. Like, they're all great. But personally, I feel like this movie is a little too dark for me. I know. When you look at what's come lately, this is pretty light. But to be fair, this is a Tim Burton movie. And if you've watched my show before, you know I'm not a big Tim Burton fan. I'm just not. I'm not a fan of his style. This is the closest to a Tim Burton movie that I would watch. And I don't even really consider this a Tim Burton movie. You can just kind of tell by the aesthetics it's a Tim Burton movie. So, 1989 Batman, and yes, we're counting this. I know it's 89, but we're going to count this as 90. The synopsis: the Dark Knight of Gotham City brings his war on crime, with his first major enemy being Jack Napier, a criminal who becomes the clownishly homicidal Joker. Now, you all know my love of Joker. I'm giving this one a pass because it was the first real interpretation of Joker. 66 had theirs. We're going to go with 66 had theirs. We're going to go with this one. That's 66. Batman's 86. We're going to have, this is a different one. We have Michael Keaton as Batman, which I will have to say, besides Ben Affleck, this is the best Batman, in my opinion. I think Affleck plays a better Bruce Wayne, but Keaton does a better Batman. And I want people to understand that. And a lot of people don't think about that when they think about who's playing Batman. This is 2 roles. It really is 2 roles. There's Bruce and there's Batman. And you have to pick an actor that's good with both. Keaton plays a good Batman. His Bruce is okay. But when I think of what he's got to work with, he doesn't have a lot of source material to run off of. So I give him the benefit of the doubt of he does a pretty good job on Bruce Wayne. Jack Nicholson as Joker is perfect. Besides Mark Hamill's voice of Joker, Jack Nicholson as the Joker is perfect. He has the comedic side. He has the terrifying psychotic side down to a T. People like Crystal and Shat will fully agree on that point. Thank you. See, exactly. I knew Crystal would agree with me on that. I do. I really enjoy his version. Alex said, dude, I thought Bale was the best Batman. No. Because I can't stand the voice. That's why I can't stand Bale. Bale plays a pretty good Bruce. I don't like his Batman. He does play a good Bruce Wayne. In this movie, we have Michael Gough as Alfred, and he will stay Alfred for the next 4 movies, which is one of the only consistent things in the franchise. For Batman, Batman Returns, Batman Forever, and Batman Robin, we have Michael Gough as Alfred in every movie, which is pretty cool. The only reason he did not continue was because he unfortunately passed away in, I believe, 2001. So that sucks. But he plays a very good Alfred. In this movie, we have a lot of practical gadgets, and they're done properly, which I enjoy. Asking Kim Basinger, Vicky Vale, to know her weight when getting ready to use the grappling hook is a very smart thing to do because he has only calculated his weight when using a grappling hook, and he needs to change that when Kim Basinger is holding him. This is also mirrored later on when Michael Keaton comes back as Batman in the Flash movie, when he asks how much, I believe it's Flash's weight is, because he's doing the calculations of how much more he has to add to the line. That's smart. That's a good way to do it. We all know the infamous line of, "You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts." It's one of the coolest lines for Bruce. It shows his kind of crazy side. So this is one thing about this movie that I don't like, and this is the beginning of, I feel, and I know Superman has a little bit, it does this in Superman 2, but this is the first time we really see a villain die. And I feel like it's a bad precedent to push, especially with Batman, because at the end, Jack Nicholson falls and he's gone. And I feel like they shouldn't have done that. Because even though this was the first Batman movie, you had to understand at least a bit that this character is important. This is going to continue in some way. Let's not kill what is the most important villain in the franchise. I think even then you could say that Joker was one of the most important villains in his rogues gallery. So having that trend and others kind of following it going forward, I don't feel is a great idea. I feel like it really needed to lock him up in Arkham, especially with Batman's no-kill rule, which he just seems to throw away every now and then when he feels like it. But overall, it's a good movie. I think it still holds up even today. I mean, the "I'm Batman" line comes from this movie and has been replicated in pretty much every Batman medium going forward. Alex in chat, I had issues with the rest of the movies after this one, pre-Bale. They all had the same issue. Too many characters to quickly and not enough time to explore them. We're getting into that. Yes, you make a very good point. You know what? We could talk about that now, because it is a very fair argument. This is the last Batman movie until I'm trying to think, until the Batman that we've had a single villain. Returns has Penguin and Catwoman. Forever has Two-Face and Riddler. Batman and Robin has Iceman. Has Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy. Batman Begins has Ra's al Ghul and Scarecrow. Dark Knight has Two-Face and Joker. Dark Knight Returns has Bane and Talia. So yeah, not until the Batman, where we have Riddler, has there been a single villain. So yeah, it's definitely a problem, and I feel like it is. I feel like these ones do. Yeah, I can't even say these ones do a better job at it. They do a pretty crummy job at it. The next one actually is not too bad. It's the rest of them that kind of fall apart. And let's jump to the next one. So with the big box office boom that was Batman, to the point that this was the beginning of VHS, and Batman became one of the highest sought over VHS tapes back when VHS first started, that we knew we would get a sequel. And we would get that sequel with Batman Returns. Now, let's talk about Batman Returns, folks. This movie is, let me hold this up. There we go. Batman Returns. Now, this one is probably one that I have seen the least out of the four. However, I really enjoy this movie. And I will say, this movie gets way more Tim Burton-y than the other. This is one where I think they went, Tim, you did good. Here's a whole bunch of freaking money. Go nuts. And boy, did he go nuts, because this smells of Tim Burton more than any other one. Let's jump into the storyline. 1992's Batman Returns, while Batman deals with a deformed man calling himself the Penguin, wreaking havoc across Gotham with the help of a cruel businessman. A female employee of the latter becomes the Catwoman with her own vendetta. Every guy went and saw this and saw Michelle Pfeiffer and went, hello. Because Michelle Pfeiffer killed it as Catwoman in this one. The costume is not what the comics were at the time. It is a very different costume. However, it works so well. And this is something where you can take a different turn on an outfit or a character's background. And as long as you do it well with a love of a character behind it, you shouldn't have a problem convincing the audience that it's okay. And this is a great tale of it, because this is just not what you would think of a Batman story, even then, but it works so well. We've got someone like Max Schreck, who's a businessman, played by Christopher Walken. And it's an odd character. It's very Christopher Walken, as he is in most of his movies. But it kind of works. It kind of works because he's that snobby businessman who, spoilers if you've never seen the movie, attempts to kill Selina Kyle and makes her become Catwoman, and is also trying to get the Penguin as the mayor of Gotham, which is the Penguin I could see kind of going that route. Danny DeVito does an incredible job as the Penguin. I will point out, though, that I mentioned this when the Super Mario movie came out, and I'll mention it now, that I found this very ironic while watching it, that when in the Super Mario Brother movie, you saw Princess Peach and Mario sitting talking about how they ended up in the Mushroom Kingdom. And Princess Peach talks about running away from her parents and going into a sewer and becoming a princess. And I went, that's kind of the exact same story as the Penguin in Returns. The parents did not love him, so they threw him in the water, and he went down a sewer pipe, and he became the Penguin. So if you ever get thrown down a sewer, kids, you got two options: either become a penguin or become a princess. You got choices. But yeah, the Penguin is a great character in this. I think DeVito does great. Selina Kyle does an incredible job as Catwoman. If you've seen any behind-the-scenes work with her, she's swinging that whip herself, which is hot. Bruce and Batman are much better in this. I think Keaton really got that. I think he saw what worked and what didn't in the first movie and was able to apply that in this one. He's a lot more stoic, I feel, in this one. He's not in the shadows as much. The humor of the penguins that follow Penguin around with rockets attached to their backs and trying to blow up Batman is hilarious to think about, but it kind of works in a weird way. I bet PETA loved that. Other people who love that, if you don't remember the controversy, with the surprise and success of the Batman movie, McDonald's wanted to play a part in the second movie. So there was a Happy Meal of Batman Returns, and it is a lot darker than the first movie. And McDonald's was not too pleased with the response because kids were buying the Happy Meal toys and going to see the movie. And there are moments with obviously Catwoman in a very scantily clad latex suit. The Penguin bites the nose off of certain people. It's a lot of more adult style comic book action that I don't think parents were really ready for. And I did have toys back when I was a kid. I did not see the movie, but I did have the toys. It was a very fun movie, and I think it is one of the underappreciated Batman movies. I think a lot of people know of it, but I don't think people like it as much as they should. I think it's the first one gets the love because it's the first one, and the next two kind of get laughed at because of what they are. And I just think this one gets forgotten, and I feel like that's a shame. This one did a great job, and I think it needs to be shown more and appreciated more because the cast is great, the story is good. There's nothing really wrong with it. I think it's a great movie. Crystal said, I had my toys, and I was obsessed with them. And this was, I believe you said earlier, this is what made me want to be Catwoman. I completely understand that. I completely understand why this movie made Catwoman such a big name. And I feel like, you know, I like Harley Quinn as a character. I think she's written better in some forms than she is in other ones. But I think if I had a daughter and she came up to me and said, which one would you rather me be a fan of? Would you rather me be a fan of Catwoman or Harley Quinn? I'd much rather say Catwoman because she's strong, she's independent, she's sexual, which is, you know, you're going to find that in every character at this point. But I just feel like she's a stronger character than Harley. I think Harley kind of has that ditzy feel to it. It just doesn't appeal to me. I feel like it's too, I don't know, it's kind of overdone in my opinion. You've got characters in other forms now, like League of Legends Jinx and Mad Moxie, and if you want to do, I can't think of any others off the top of my head, but there's that kind of whole Harley Quinn Joker type look. It's so overdone now. So I feel like Catwoman is a much better character. Alex says Harley is an abused woman who has daddy issues, and I do agree that is a problem, that there have been many stories with Harley that show her getting abused, and I don't really feel it's a great role model for kids, but, you know, you parent your kids the way you want. But yeah, it probably has something with me not liking the Joker either, to be honest. All right, so we're 2 down. We've got the Keaton movies done. And like I said, Michael Keaton is a great Batman. I have absolutely nothing wrong with Michael Keaton. I am just more of a Ben Affleck fan. I think he plays both roles better, but Michael Keaton's a great one, in my opinion. Now, we're going to hit a point here, and it's right about now, where we're going to have some differing opinions. And by differing opinions, I mean I'm going to say something that probably a lot of people are not going to like. This is about the time when I joined the comic book reading world. This is 1995, so I'm now 7. 1992, I would have been 4. 89, I was 1. So I'm 7. I'm starting to get into comic books. I'm starting to understand comic books. And my first comic book movie is Batman Forever. Now, I understand the hate. I understand why people laugh at this movie. I understand why people think there are so many problems with it. And I'm not going to sit here and say there isn't, because there is, and I could spend a whole show going through the problems of this movie. Slasher Fred in chat says, hold on one second, I think what made the 89 Batman such a classic movie is how it was first introduced as a very serious superhero. Yes, 100%. It is exactly why. They took a serious approach for the first time. And it really showed that you could do it serious and people will take it serious. Now, Batman Forever. Let's jump into quickly. Let's go through the plot. Batman must battle former District Attorney Harvey Dent, now Two-Face, and Edward Nygma, the Riddler, with help with his psychologist. Let me try that again in English, perhaps. Batman must battle former District Attorney Harvey Dent, who is now Two-Face, and Edward Nygma, the Riddler, with help from his amorous psychologist and young circus acrobat, who becomes his sidekick, Robin. Why would you put the term amorous psychologist? That is such a tongue twister. So, in this one, we have our first introduction of the Boy Wonder, Robin. And here's problem number one. The Boy Wonder, who is now Bruce's ward, is like 26. I totally see the problem with that. Yeah, the whole idea of him being like in his mid-20s and like being under Bruce's wing is just hilarious. I do get it though from a movie standpoint, because back in those days you really shouldn't do a kid as Robin, because the logistical side of your mind is going, Batman's a jerk because he's putting this young kid in so much danger. Later in movies like Kick-Ass, for example, they did that properly with Hit Girl. However, back in the 90s, it was a little harder to do. So as I said, this is my first Batman movie. This is my first time seeing Batman on the big screen. I love this movie. And I know you're going to hate me for saying it, but this is probably, if not my favorite Batman movie. And it is completely nostalgic goggles. I understand that because, like I said, I will completely rip this movie apart because I can see all the flaws. Jim Carrey's The Riddler, I think, is fine. I don't see a problem with Jim being the Riddler. You can do that character in a kooky, over-the-top Jim Carrey-esque role. I think he does a fine job in that. Two-Face, however, as a giant Two-Face fan, being my favorite villain, is wasted in this movie and is wrong on so many levels. First off, Tommy Lee Jones plays this like Jack Nicholson's Joker, which is the absolute wrong thing to do. Second, he, in interviews and from Jim Carrey, was making fun of Jim Carrey's Riddler. And I'm like, dude, you're campier than Jim in half of the scenes. Jim's character makes sense being that way because it's all in his head and he's kook. You're just Joker with half a face. You're even half purple, which is Joker's color. It's an odd casting. Nicole Kidman as Chase Meridian, the love interest in this. Hello, she is attractive in this movie. However, she is way over the top in this. She has some weird dialogue when it comes to flirting with Batman, and it just comes off awkward. Val Kilmer as Batman is not the greatest. I'm not a big fan of his Batman. I don't mind him, though, as Bruce. I think he does a fine job as Bruce. He doesn't do a great job. He does a fine job. But Riddler is the standout in this, and I think that's the thing that everybody remembers from this entire movie. Again, the biggest problem of this movie is everything that everyone points out. The Robin being 26, Edward Nygma working for Wayne Enterprises and then going kooky with his mind control, which if you've not seen the Nostalgia Critic just rip this movie a new one, oh my, I would say half of his jokes on here, but I don't want to steal them. but he just tears into this movie. And this is probably my favorite, but I get everything that he says. He does such a good job tearing this movie into smithereens. Slasher Fred said, in the scene where the Enigma's in the lair and he's trying to come up with a name, his alter ego, and one of the names he picks is the Puzzler, and the Puzzler was a villain. Yes, exactly. A little Easter eggs like that where the Puzzler was actually a villain. Those are little things that I love, and we didn't have the culture back then that we're able to sort of see all those little Easter eggs, but it's nice to see them now. I want to throw up a poster one more time before we jump to the next one. The Batmobile in this one, I will fully admit, is a giant downgrade from the first one. This is a very odd design. The original one with Michael Keaton is probably the best known besides the Tumbler. Yeah, you can tell based off the response that they got from parents and McDonald's, who was a big sponsor or a big partnership. They were trying to go more kid-friendly with this one. And from a business side, I completely understand it. You've got a brand like McDonald's who now doesn't trust your brand to follow in their way of life, I guess you'd call it, their way of doing business. So I understand them wanting to go more kid-friendly. I love this movie, but like I said, you can rip this to shreds. There is one scene, and I don't want to steal Nostalgia Critics' line, but I almost fell over laughing at this. In the scene where Dick Grayson's parents die, they go through the Robin origin. You see the overhead shot of Dick in the middle of the body of his family, and then the next scene is a shot of outside Wayne Manor, and there's this horse statue like neighing back on two legs, and there's a rock like right in front of it. And Nostalgia Critic goes, and we go from this tragic scene of Robin's parents dying to a horse humping a rock. And it is true. It is such an odd cut to be like, why did you shoot that of all things in Wayne Manor? But yeah, I totally get the performances, the over-the-topness of this, I get. But I love this movie. I really don't have a problem with it. Now, let's jump into the final one. And this is the one that I know everybody's got an opinion on because it is the most hated Batman movie ever made. 1 second, I have to blow my nose again. I told you guys I'm getting over a cold. Ugh. All right. Let's get into it. We can't go any further without talking about Batman and Robin. I don't know how I feel about this movie. I don't mind this. And there's a reason. There's a reason for that. The first movie I ever watched of Batman was Batman Forever. We just talked about it, and I told you why I like that movie. The first Batman property I ever watched, however, was the Adam West show. Now, there's a reason why I compare them, because if you can watch the campiness of the Adam West show, you can watch Batman and Robin and not make fun of it, because it is the same amount of campiness. Again, we all know the story. If you know anything about this movie, this was the studio wanting to make toys, and they needed something to push toys. The the many interviews with Joel Schumacher, who directed this and directed Forever, had so many times where he would show up on set and the production assistants or people from the studio would have toys already built for what costumes they wanted the actors to wear and what vehicles they'll be using in the movie. So it was really just to make toys. So on that basis, I can't rip it too hard because they're kind of fighting a studio. Marcy said, George Clooney is a terrible Batman. George Clooney is a terrible Batman. George Clooney, however, is a great Bruce Wayne because guess what? He kind of is Bruce Wayne. Slasher Fred said they changed the whole story of Batgirl because in the comics and in the old TV show, because Barbara was Commissioner Gordon's child. Yes, that was something that did change. This is now Alfred's daughter or granddaughter, which I don't see a problem with. That was something that I didn't really throw my head against and go, wait, what are we doing? Like, that shouldn't be happening. Like, it wasn't a big deal. However, Alicia Silverstone as Batgirl, they didn't really have a lot to do, to be fair. I mean, she's only Batgirl for probably 20 minutes of the movie, not even. So I can't really blame her for it. The other villains, in the movie are obviously Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze and Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy, which, villain-wise, I don't really have a problem with. Freeze and Poison Ivy are great villains for a Batman movie. The ice puns get very annoying very quickly, which I'll fully admit. Uma Thurman's trying to be seductive gets real old real fast because she fails miserably, and her over-the-top vaudeville curses gets real old real fast. I think Chris O'Donnell is actually better in this one than he was in Forever, because in this one he acts more like he's going to become Nightwing, including having the Nightwing costume, which I kind of don't mind. I think that works even better. Oh, right. Thank you, Slasher Fred, for reminding me. Bane is also in. Is Bane really in this movie, though? Really? Like, not really. He is technically, but it is funny, though. It is funny, though. You say that Bane is in this. What's Bane's role in this movie? Bane's role in this movie is all surrounded by what a female villain wants him to do. He's only doing what Poison Ivy tells him to do. What does The Dark Knight Returns have? Bane, who is being controlled by another female villain. Talia al Ghul. Schumacher did it first. I didn't even dawn on me till I watched this again, until I watched The Dark Knight Returns a second time, and I'm like, it's the exact same thing. It's just they pushed Bane more than they pushed Talia. But it's the same camaraderie. He does everything for the girl. So that's just a funny coincidence that I don't think many people pick up on. I actually don't mind the suit for Arnold. I think it looks menacing. I think he does. His size and everything is also big enough that it's a little intimidating for Batman. He's just such a ham actor, though. It kind of ruins it. There are obvious lines that people make fun of. The back credit card is obviously the one that everyone rips apart, because why would you have a back credit card? Because if you have a back credit card, you obviously have a bank account, which obviously has a name on it, which is probably Bruce Wayne. It doesn't take a scientist to figure out that Bruce Wayne is Batman. When it comes to the storyline overall, it's a lot of Bruce and Robin bickering. Like, I want to be a part of this. I don't want you to be in this. Like that. The entire movie's just them bickering and Freeze and Ivy trying to freeze Gotham. So even the story's a little lackluster. But again, I grew up with the Adam West show. And because of that, I don't mind the campiness that much. However, like Batman Forever, I do understand why people don't like this movie. Slash your friend in chat says the Batman Mask of the Phantasm is almost like a version of Casablanca. It really is. Also has a very classic plot twist. Yes, it does. That very good point. Yeah, I gotta watch that again. I haven't seen Phantasm in a while. It is probably, if not the best Batman movie. And I know I could put it on this list, but I was more going for the live action stuff. But yeah, the Batman and Robin is just it's a tough watch even now. If you can turn your brain off, you're fine. But if you go into this trying to be serious, it's a rough movie. George Clooney has jokingly over the years said he killed the franchise, and he kind of did. Unfortunately, he did. It was several years until we got Batman Begins, and it was, except for the animated stuff, we never saw any live action. I wouldn't blame George though, to be completely honest. It comes down to the writing. And like I said at the beginning, this movie was totally written by committee. They wanted to make toys more than they wanted to make a movie. So I can't blame him. I can't blame Chris O'Donnell. I can't blame Alicia Silverstone. In fact, I think Crystal said earlier, maybe Crystal didn't say, somebody said earlier about how good Uma Thurman looked in the costume. I got to say, Alicia Silverstone looks incredible in that Batgirl costume. And it sucks that she does not get to come back in it, because I think they could actually do a lot with that character, especially being Alfred's daughter. But yeah, I completely think that they should have done more with this. It failed. It really failed in the box office. It did kind of kill the franchise. No one really wanted to touch this. I think someone earlier in chat, Slasher said, did you know that Uma Thurman was in a movie called Avengers, but it was the actual movie reboot of the 60s spy series? Yes, exactly. There was a movie in the 90s called The Avengers, and it had nothing to do with the Marvel comic. It was a 1960s spy series, a British series that was called The Avengers. And it's funny because I've said, oh, did you watch the 90s Avengers? And people will be like, there's a 90s Avengers movie? And I explain, no, just the name's similar. But yeah, let's quickly scroll through these before we get out of here for the evening. So we've got Batman and Robin. Everybody under the sun has got an opinion on this, and most of them are not good, and I completely understand why. I don't mind watching it. I think it's a fun movie. Batman Forever is my first Batman, so I have to give it a pass. I do love little bits of this. And also, by the way, we wouldn't get Seal Kiss from a Rose if it wasn't for this movie, folks. So take that. Which I infamously, McFarlane just released a 4-pack of or 4 figures individually from this movie. There's a Batman, a Robin, a Two-Face, and a Riddler. And with most McFarlane figures, they have pieces in each one. If you collect them all, you can build the figure. And the build figure is of a giant bat, because in the director's cut of this movie, there is a scene where Bruce is sleeping and he sees a giant bat in his dream. And that's the nod to that. And I said, no, what they should have done was the Build-A-Figure should have been Seal in his Kiss from a Rose open shirt from the music video. Because no one knows, unless you're a diehard fan of the movie, you don't know what that bat means. And if they did Nicole Kidman, no one would have cared. So I think that would have been hilarious. It's a couple arms, a couple legs, and it's Seal in the Build-A-Figure. But yeah, I personally love Batman Forever. Returns is a great movie when it comes to watching Michael Keaton evolve his Bruce and his Batman from the original, getting some evolution of this. Michelle Pfeiffer will be always remembered for this role. Even Danny DeVito, I think, has done so much with his career since then. But there's such a generation out there that knows him just as the Penguin, and I think this one needs a little more love in the world. I think people need to give this one a little bit another look, because I think it gets lost in the file of all of the problems, the highs and the lows of the Batman franchise, and I think this one deserves a little more love. And last but not least, the one that started it all, the original Batman, the one that put Michael Keaton on the map. I mean, he did Beetlejuice the year before, but this is the one in comic book fans. And let's be honest, he's Batman, he's Birdman, he's the Vulture. This is the one that started his love of winged characters at this point. He even came back and did The Flash. So this is the one that started all. This is the one that started the love for the Batman franchise. And I feel like this one, like I said, is not my favorite. It's probably the fourth out of all of them, but I still love this movie. I understand why people love it. It did sort of set the bar for this type of movie, and the love it gets is completely understandable. Folks, we're at the 55-minute mark, and we're getting close to that time. With Slasher Fred said, Batman Returns has many Frankenstein, but in reference in moments, because we see the Penguin spying all the people of Gotham enjoying the holidays. He feels so left out. That is I wonder if they wrote it that way, where it is very Frankenstein. Never thought of it that way. Huh, that does make sense. Interesting. Nice little nod there. I like that one. So we're done with our 90s week, or a couple weeks. We did 90s video game movies. We did 90s comic book movies. We just did 90s Batman movies. I greatly appreciate you guys being here. If you could, like I said earlier, you can hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It shows that you like this stuff, and that means I will do more of it in the future. I hope you guys are ready for Black Friday. I've got a couple things I got to pick up. I honestly think, I don't know how the audio is tonight. I tested it out a little earlier, and there was a little bit of problems. I hope it's not too bad. I'm probably going to be picking up a new microphone this Black Friday, because I'm having a lot of problems with this thing, and it's starting to piss me off a bit. So I'm probably going to get a new microphone in the next couple of weeks, which I'm super excited for. Alex, need 90s Saturday cartoons. You know what? You make a good point. The nostalgia, or not nostalgia, the Geeks & Co. folks just did one on that. So I do have it in the bag, and I will definitely be, I'll definitely be putting that one forward. We did do 90s cartoons probably a couple months ago, but we're probably going to do another Saturday morning ones. I like that one. Darkwing Duck is my jam. Darkwing Duck should be your jam. It is such a good show. But next week, we're going to be talking about the top nerd and geek Xmas and holiday gifts for this year. We're going to go through different prices. We're going to go through expensive stuff. We're going to go through gifts for couples. We're going to go through budgets. We're going to go through different fandoms. We're going to gift for Potter fans, Star Wars fans, Marvel fans, anime, gaming, and that would be, I think I got one more. Where is it? Oh, we're going to also have stocking stuffers. So you guys will have some ideas of what you can get nerds in your life. I would say yes to 80s, but you weren't around. Yeah, I would have to get pretty specific on a couple of the 80s ones, because there wasn't many that I was around for. Maybe we'll be able to do that. After that, we're going to do 6 things you need in a cosplay room. I do this show in my cosplay room, so we're going to do an episode talking about, if you want to build your own cosplay room, what things you need and what things would be great to have, and what things you could probably avoid that I've seen a lot of people have that I picked up, and it's not necessary. And then we're going to do an episode on Green Lantern and the Blackest Night series. And then the end of the year, for the 23rd, just before the holiday season, we're going to talk all about 2024 and what we have ready for 2025. Folks, I hope you've had fun. I greatly appreciate you spending your Monday nights here. Have yourselves a good night, and I will see you probably this week. Oh, also, before you duck out, this week and for the next little while, I'm going to be posting a daily YouTube short on my YouTube channel, the channel where you're watching this, and it is going to be different questions that I've received and I've Googled that people ask about cosplay. So I've got a whole bunch on what to do with foam and foam armor. I've got a bunch that are on cosplay competitions. I've got a bunch that are on volunteering and working with celebrities, because that's what I do on my side thing. I volunteer with celebrities at comic conventions. And I've also got some long form videos that I'm going to be posting about adhesives for foam, cutting foam, and a whole bunch of other stuff. This whole week, I'm going to be shooting a whole bunch of YouTube stuff. So for the next little while, probably until the end of the year, I'm going to be posting a whole bunch on YouTube. So get ready for that. Have yourselves a good night. I hope to talk to you very, very soon. I love you all, and I'll see you soon. Love you all. Talk soon. See ya.
Hey, thanks for watching Monday Night Nerd. If you enjoyed this content, please hit the subscribe button, like this content, and follow on social media for even more nerdy fun. See you soon.